Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and I'm so excited to be here today. Again, my name is Andriana. I'm coming to you from sunny California, although today is not super sunny, but happy to be here. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and you guys let me know if you could see it. All right. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, you're good.
Excellent. Again, and so as Nicole mentioned, today we're going to be talking about sorting through the clutter that no longer serves you and sentimental items that you may have been keeping and have been kind of pondering, maybe what to do with them or how to approach going through the things that you have. All of us, it's just a natural human nature to keep things as time goes on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about tackling that today. And just to reintroduce myself, my name is Andriana Mendez. My husband and I are the owners of a company called Custom Moving and Hauling out here in California on the West Coast. We're sort of near San Francisco, and we've helped a lot of families over the years to, in a lot of cases, are downsizing, but are also maybe just relocating or possibly going through the things in their home for a variety of different reasons. And we'll talk some more about some of what those reasons are, but everybody's situation is a little bit different, but it doesn't change the way that, we approach those sentimental items. We still kind of approach them in the same way. And so just to have a little bit of background, we all have, like I said, physical clutter. It's tough to have these type of items, and just a few facts to kind of give some background on what clutter does to us psychologically and physically, emotionally, and just 40% of reducing clutter in your home reduces housework by 40%. So I don't know if about any of you, but I love the idea of reducing housework and any other chores that I can have that I can take away from myself. I'm good to go with that. So that's that's almost 50%. That's a really big percentage, I think, in my opinion. And also clutter in the home is linked to poor sleep. People have a hard time falling asleep when there's a lot of things in and around where they sleep at. And it's also linked to poor eating habits. And this one, I think, is really, I think a lot of us are, we love shopping, we love feeling good, looking good, but we wear just 20% of our clothes 80% of the time. And most of the rest of the things that we have just hangs there in that just in case. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, the just in case scenario and how that can have an effect on just your clutter and the amount of things that you have, and is that really necessary? And then the statistic that 2.5 days are spent a year on looking for misplaced items. It's not just looking for misplaced items, but then maybe you're out, you're like, gosh, I can't find XYZ item. Maybe I'll just grab another one. Maybe you're at the dollar store somewhere, and before you know it, you accumulate a lot of duplicates. And so that can kind of mount into the clutter situation, and how you end up with a lot of duplicates and a lot of extra things because you don't know where things are. So taking a few steps back and trying to locate those essential items that are in your home, putting them in places that are accessible and that you know where they are, will help, spending all that extra time looking for things that we already have. And so what is sentimental clutter? This is things that we keep because they have an emotion attached to them, but maybe are now taking over your home. Like I said, I think it's something that all of us keep things for sentimental purposes, some more than others. And it's about allowing yourself to go through the process of asking yourself if you really still need those items and if they're still serving you a purpose at this point in time. And so the first thing that we usually do when we go in and work with customers is asking, what is your why for going through your things? Why do you want to sort through your clutter? Because it could just continue to sit there, but I'm sure there's a reason why you called on us or you're here today, is because you're feeling some type of way about it, or maybe you're going through something in life. Maybe you're downsizing. You maybe just want to move into a smaller home, so therefore you can't take as many items with you to your smaller home because you want less home maintenance, so you're downsizing, or saving money on mortgage and utilities. Totally makes sense. Maybe you want to age in place safer. Maybe you want to be able to make sure you can walk in and around your home without there being any hazards for falling or tripping or things falling. Or maybe you intend to move into a smaller area of your home. We have a lot of customers that we work with who maybe live in a larger, maybe they live in a home with more family, a multi-generational family, and they're moving into a portion of their home that is maybe the bottom floor, and other people are living on different floors, or they're home sharing for a variety of reasons. So again, therefore they're moving into a smaller space and just can't take as much things with them. Or do you want more space for your hobbies? I don't know about you, but when I have I like to do watercolor, and when I do my watercoloring, I have a whole table I put out, and there's lots of stuff that goes with it. I've got all my paint brushes, and you want to have that space so you can have fun and enjoy the process of creating whatever it is you're doing, or whatever your hobby might be. You just want to be able to do those things again, or be able to happily do them. Maybe have friends or family come over and do them with you. Things like that. It's nice to have space to do things like that. Or if you want to reduce stress in your life caused by clutter. A lot of people can relate to the fact that having a lot of items in and around their living space is stressful. There's a lot of studies that have been done on that. And living in a clean and free environment helps us live more happy and more healthy. So knowing all of these things and having a goal of how to approach your clutter from the beginning is where to start. And I like to take a quote. It's like packing for vacation. You have to know where you're going in order to be prepared. So what is your end goal with tackling your clutter and your sentimental items, and taking a step back from that, putting that overall umbrella of what the goal is, and then making a plan based on that. And it is something that we owe to ourselves, so taking action rather than waiting until there isn't a choice to go through your things, giving yourself that space and time to do that, and being really proactive about going through your things. And it gives you the control, and not just what you get to keep, but how you go through that process. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a few slides. So the first part is getting started. A lot of our customers, when we come to work with them, this is by far the hardest part, is how do I start? Where do I start? And a lot of times we don't even really put together a plan. I just say, let's just start. And once things get rolling, just literally one foot in front of another, one box in front of another, one piece of paper in front of another. And then you'll find that things get a little bit easier as time goes on. And it's a little less painful. But it's just, like I said, giving yourself that time and space to do this process, why you're still healthy and why you're still able to make decisions about what you personally want to keep or not. And finding your style. Maybe you want to set aside a few hours a week or a couple hours on the weekend, but kind of setting something on the calendar about, setting a date, setting a goal. Like I mentioned, what is the goal in the end? And then making it like an appointment. You have for example, this meeting, you have a 1 hour every week that you come to this meeting and you watch this video and you get to chat with friends. I think you owe it to yourself to put something on the schedule to go through your clutter, like I said, so you can have control over that. And in some places, maybe an hour feels like too much. And I know, like I said, it's not something I think a lot of people want to, or are not super excited about going through their things, especially their sentimental items that they know are going to bring up certain emotions. But say 10 minutes for 5 days a week or 3 days a week. Something is always better than nothing, and just giving yourself that, and just, what could go wrong in 10 minutes? You can get that part done, and then say maybe you work up to 20 or 30 minutes a few days a week. Give yourself the weekends off, giving yourself space to do that. And then really hold yourself accountable for sticking to this process, or having an accountability buddy. Maybe you have a neighbor or a friend. Maybe you have a friend that's really organized and they're really good at this kind of stuff. So maybe calling them up, telling them what your plan is to go through your things, and so they know, and so they can check in on you, and so you can have something to report back. And it really helps to have that accountability buddy. And then giving yourself an environment that's comfortable to you. Some people like to work by themselves when they're going through their sentimental things. Some people are more social. They want to have a friend over. So think about who you want to include in that process. Is it something that, are you better in the morning of making those decisions? Or, do you want to emotionally prepare yourself and have a little bit of time in the afternoon to do it if you're only going to do a few minutes? And so finding that time and that space and that group of people, if you choose so, that will help you kind of get through that. And then really, like I said, setting a deadline. So you can't win a race if you don't know where the finish line is. So making sure you set a goal and creating a deadline. And then just some tips in general as you go through this process, I always recommend to start in smaller areas. Nothing feels more overwhelming than looking at a mountain of boxes in your garage, or piles that feel never ending. So kind of create a checklist. I think that this makes things feel more manageable and going, maybe it's a checklist. Okay, today I'm going to go through 3 boxes from my garage. Or, this week I'm going to go through this dresser in my spare bedroom. Or finding things that you can accomplish and then checking them off. I know it feels like a small thing, but having a checklist and crossing things off feels really good. And it feels invigorating, and it feels like, okay, I can do this. Like I said, it's all about kind of just getting things rolling and knowing that you can do it, and just to give yourself the proper space and time to do that. And then creating 3 very distinct piles as you're going through them. There's the keep, there's the donate, and discard. And maybe piles are, like I said, are a maybe. Maybes are maybes. This is something we'll talk a little bit more, but if you're absolutely having a hard time as you're going through things, and I'll go through some questions that you can ask yourself as you're going through things, go ahead and create a maybe pile. Obviously, you're going to have to return back to your maybe pile and thinking about it again. But later on, sometimes after you've gone through the whole process, you'll find that maybe your visions become more clear about whether or not the items in that maybe pile are going to go to keep, toss, or donate. And I always also recommend to try to avoid storage as you're going through things. A lot of folks want to just move things out of their home for, like I said, if they're trying to make the home safer, or if they're downsizing, I'll just put it in storage. But if you can't possibly bear to deal with some of the things that you're going through, it's okay. And I think it should be definitely looked at as a temporary solution. And also make sure to rent the smallest space you can and for the shortest contract that you can at a time as you continue to go through things. So then as you're going through things, there's some questions you want to ask yourself, with the exception of holiday and seasonal items, because of course those are kind of fall under a different category. But ask yourself, have you used it? And if you haven't, if it's a brand new item that's maybe still in its packaging, have you looked at it recently at all lately? And if the answer is no, or maybe, there's the likelihood that you're going to use it or maybe think about it is very low. So I recommend donating things like that. And then how long has it been there? Do you think you're going to use it in the next month? I would say it's 30 to 60 days. If you're looking at an item that you have, if you think you're going to use it or you're going to use it, that's a good time frame. If it's something that you're holding on to, something somebody gave you, or something that you've purchased, or something that's been gifted to you, it's not very likely that you're going to use it outside of that window. Or it's not advisable to keep things that, maybe I'll use this in 7 months or next year or the year after that. It's just helping reduce those items down to much smaller, more essential and manageable items are highly recommended. And then do you have a duplicate? We don't need 3 staplers or scissors. Just reducing things down to having the essential items. One of them is just fine. And then of course, the big question is it sentimental? And if it is, then there's another series of questions that you can ask yourself, and another process that we can go through as we go through these sentimental items. And one of them is, are you holding on to this item for someone? Maybe you have a set of china dishes, or clothing, maybe your wedding dress, maybe not your wedding dress, but maybe you have things that you've held on for the years, maybe for your children or a niece or nephew. And you wanted to gift those items to them, and you're holding on to them for the time that it feels right to gift them. I highly encourage having honest and brutal conversations with the people that you, in your mind, are anticipating to give them to sometime soon or somewhere down the road about if they want these items, if they want them now, or if they would want them later. I think it behooves you to have that conversation now and understand, what their thoughts are about that. Maybe you just going through the process of telling them, why you were saving it for them and kind of just putting that out in the open. We've worked with customers before we had a client who saved a whole hutch worth of dishes from her first marriage for her daughter. And it got down to a point where she was downsizing and, she was moving into a smaller home, and we'd packed everything, and she was like, okay, my daughter's going to take all of these. And the daughter comes and she's like, well, I don't have any room for these. And she didn't have any desire for them. Not only didn't she have not room for them, she didn't care for the style. And then it was kind of a jarring experience amongst the whole process of her downsizing and moving and kind of going through that stressful time already. So having those conversations ahead of time so you can better manage the emotional response to that is highly encouraged. Because you never know. Or maybe you might find something you're like, that's, I'm just going to give that away. And, maybe a neighbor is like, oh gosh, no, I've always admired that. I would love, and then it kind of gives you an opportunity to do that. Like I said, have those conversations. And another thing to ask yourself with these sentimental items, are you holding onto it because of someone? I think a lot of people we've come across feel like they're holding on to things because they have to, because it's been gifted to them by a family member or someone close to them in the past. And I definitely think that you owe yourself, or you should allow yourself to let go of things that either don't fit your style or don't fit your lifestyle. I think people feel guilty sometimes about giving away things that was gifted to them by a family member who's maybe no longer around anymore. And kind of have to think about it in an aspect of, okay, if that person was still here, they would want you to be happy. They would want for you to keep only the things that you want and that you cherish and that fit within your lifestyle now. And it's also important to remind yourself that the memories don't live within the item. We had a customer who kept this rocking chair in her garage. I don't think she'd ever used it. Honestly, it was in her garage for years, maybe 30 plus years. And she didn't know what to do with it. And it was not a very comfortable rocking chair, but it was her grandmother's that her grandmother used to sit in when she was a kid. And it was important to remind her that, she still has the memory of her grandmother, and that physical just wooden chair, that item is not her grandmother. Her grandmother's not living in that item. And so kind of giving yourself this simplify and look at that item, keep those memories, but you don't necessarily have to keep the items. A memory is something that nobody can take from you. So keeping that in mind. And then going back to the question of sentimental, asking yourself if the item truly lives in your heart and why. Is the memory painful or joyful? It's incredible how many people that we've come across keep items and they're like, gosh, they don't, either it reminds them of something they don't like or someone they don't like. And they're like, gosh, I don't even know why I have this. I'm not even friends with so-and-so anymore. And, it's just amazing how many things you can get rid of if associated with a negative energy. Definitely give yourself the space to donate that or move along from it. And then asking yourself, what does it represent? And does this still mean something to you even now? Maybe you kept something from high school that at that time meant a lot to you, but now maybe you're not feeling such an attachment to it. And you've held on to it thinking, oh, it used to, but okay, really ask yourself, what does it mean to me now? And then the next one is, this is an important subject as part of all this. What is the legacy, or what legacy are you choosing to leave behind? And we're going to talk about the legacy list. And this is a concept created by Matt Paxton, who has a television show, and he's a renowned downsizer. He's Emmy nominated. And he asked the questions, what are the items that will help me live happily and keep my story living forever? So when approaching your sentimental items, asking yourself that question. And it's just the key aspect of understanding that these items that we hold on to are vehicles of remembering someone you love and how they made you feel. They continue to make you happy, and they continue to leave behind that legacy as time goes on. And they're not usually financially valuable items. A lot of times they're things that are just more emotionally valuable. Sometimes some of the most invaluable items financially are the most significantly emotionally valuable to us. And so in finding your legacy and in finding these items that you hope that will continue to tell your story now and beyond, it's important to tell the story as you're sorting through your items, as you're deciding whether you keep it or you shouldn't keep it. Vocalizing, the memory associated with it, the people associated with those items. Savor the moments of going that process. I think that people underestimate not just the items, but the process of going through and sorting through sentimental items. It's about telling the stories and sharing them to the people closest to you. Maybe you don't have children or you don't have family around, but even just vocally saying things out loud really, really helps. We had a customer that we helped with, and she lived alone. She was downsizing, moving across the country because she just wanted to be able to have more money to travel, get on a bus and go wherever she wanted. And so she had a lot of things that we were helping her sort through. And we kind of gave her that task of, okay, she was telling us stories during the day as we were helping her, but I said, we can't be here every day, all day. So she had a lot of things. And I said, just talk as if someone were here. Tell someone your stories. Tell about each of those things. You've kept it for a reason, but you can't take everything with you. So say it out loud. And she found that was very rewarding and very helpful in helping her heal through the process of sorting through her sentimental items. And again, asking the question about what inspires you, if the item that you're keeping, if it inspires you, if it gives you meaning, your current life meaning still. What memories do you keep coming back to when you're thinking about what are these legacy items that you're going to hang on to that are sentimental, and are they going to continue to sell your stories and your memories? And I know Matt Paxton talks about having 6 to 12 items. I feel like kind of depending on what your reason for going through your things are. If you're downsizing is one thing, but if you're just trying to clear more space, those items, I feel like it varies from person to person how many of those sentimental items to keep. But it's the bigger concept of keeping things that continue to make you happy now because of the memories associated with them, as well as what they will continue to tell your story about what you cared about in life and what you continue to care about and what legacy that will leave behind. And then how to find more space overall. As you're going through these items, you're likely clearing space of sentimental items so you can have more space in your home. And there's a few things that you can do with things just to take, like I said, to create more space for yourself inside the home when space is a concern. And then most likely you're going to be going through a lot of photos and documents, some older photos and documents. Just some tips about these is, it used to be common standard to have duplicates of a lot of photos. I would say in most cases, if you're reducing items, especially those important pictures, we really only need to keep one of them unless you're gifting one to someone else. So go ahead and do that. Discarding of any damaged photos or grainy photos that you can't really see much of anyways, and you'd have to describe to someone anyways if they were to look at it. Another way you can reduce bulk with photos especially is removing them from frames. I know a lot of people's tradition to hang a lot of older photos on the wall. But if you find that you're reducing space and you can't do that, you can still take them out of their frames and keep them in nice booklets. And there's a lot of amazing processes of digitizing photos these days to help you save space on things, to send them off, and they can do that for you. And there's some really great memory boxes and scrapbooks. I find this is a really amazing way to take sentimental items, especially smaller sentimental items, and create some really nice boxes that it's almost like you create a legacy for that person. What are a few things that reminded you of that person or that place that you traveled, or, it could be a variety of things. And there's some examples here. This is just a memory box on the top left of someone who's no longer here. There was a few things that his family put together that was just a nice, very simplified way to embody who that person was. Or on the right, just some places that someone's traveled. On the bottom there was a customer that we did recently. They had a couple, they love to travel. They traveled in so many places and they went to a lot of different shows and a lot of entertainment. So they put together this memory box of all their tickets. Was really cool. So it was a nice way to keep those items without it just being stuffed in a box. Because if we're going to keep things, those sentimental things, we want to make sure that we can enjoy them, right? And see them and experience them and tell a story. And then documents, lots of folks have, a lot of documents, and just making sure just to pare down on things like those that older items that are not needed to be kept anymore. They're probably not sentimental, but things like taxes, W-2s, paycheck stubs, and bills, just make sure that you can go ahead and shred those. But then, of course, the important documents like marriage license and birth certificates, passports, putting those in a banker's box so they're maybe removed from the house so they're not taking up space inside your house, or in a fireproof safe box. And then what to do with the things that are still good. So maybe as you're going through items and you've asked yourself all those questions, does it mean something to me still? Will it continue to tell my story? No, you're finding, okay, it doesn't, but it's still good, right? You don't want to send it directly to the dumpster. So inevitably, there'll be things that you'll find as you go through that are still good and that you can kind of rehome. And so I talked about this a little bit earlier, just having that conversation with friends and family. Maybe you have a neighbor who loved an artwork, and you kind of just like, well, this doesn't really mean that much to me anymore. I'm not that fond of it over the years. I'm kind of tired of it, gifting things. And it's kind of like giving those items another life and giving happiness to someone else. And so that's a nice way to transfer those items. And then, of course, there's a lot of charities, I'm sure, in the area. You could research, look up in the newspaper. Sometimes I see commercials on our television here about some local charities that could benefit from some of the items that you have. And then donating things. Books are a big one. We have a lot of customers who have just lots of books, and maybe you've read them already, or you're tired of looking at them, or they're taking up extra space in your spare bedroom that you want more space for, which is the whole reason why you kind of started to go through your things. So you'll find that libraries, museums, schools, and literacy programs take things like books. So if you look at things like that in your area, if you've got a lot of extra clothing, maybe that's not your clothing that you were holding on from someone before who is just it's just not serving you a purpose anymore. There's local charity organizations, foster homes, adult centers, and battered women's shelters, homeless shelters. There's lots of places that clothing can be donated. It can really be used to a good cause. So that they can have a new life that way, as well as furniture in that aspect. And then, of course, there's selling items. I find that a lot of times when people are moving, or if they're downsizing, or they're kind of going through the things that they have, you have this vision of what, maybe you purchased something for 20, 30 years ago, and it was a big investment for you and your family at the time, and you find like, oh gosh, it's not really worth what it used to be. And I know that can be kind of a jarring experience, and it's just one of those things that just, the styles are different now, the desires of younger people are different now. And so a good place to go is workpoint.com to get an idea of, if you've got maybe nicer pieces that you think might be worth something, so you can get an idea of how much they're valued at now. I highly recommend hiring a professional appraiser to go through some of the items that you think are more rare, or that you find could be more rare based on your research, to make sure you're pricing those properly. And then there's always things like garage sales and estate sales to sell those items. I highly encourage, if you have garage sales or estate sales, to have somebody kind of stand around and just to kind of secure the property as you're having those sales, just to make sure nothing goes missing that had a price tag on it. I know it can feel fun and exciting, but I've had customers who do things like that and stuff goes missing, and I always just try to recommend that. And then online, there's a bunch of places online that you can list things, consignment as well. Just make sure with consignment that you check the contract, because in most consignment places, they will keep the item from 6 to be anywhere between 60 and 90 days. So after that, it becomes their property and then you don't receive any profit from it. So just make sure you read their contract when you have things dropped off at consignment. And then there's always repurposing items. I've seen some really cool things done with even sentimental items that are left around the home. Was just a picture that I found, but it's just some cool household, especially kitchen items can be really repurposed for a lot of different things, for the garden, for your craft room, even for tools around the house. So consider what you can do with those sentimental items that can maybe be put to use rather than being in a box or being given away. And maybe it's something that you keep, or maybe it's something that you give to someone close to you, that just the process of repurposing that item and giving it to someone can feel really rewarding. This is just a few examples of things that I've seen. Like I said, kitchen items tend to be items that people have a lot of left over. And like I said, never underestimate some of the really cool things that you can make with some of your extra items that don't make sense for you anymore. And then just some reminders for yourself that you should really give yourself credit just for the process of going through all of your items. It's not something that I know is really easy to get started, or it's not always fun, but allowing yourself and giving yourself the process to go through this and taking control of things now, so that you have a choice and the energy and the capacity to go through things in your own way, right? Like you don't want to have it get to a point where you're forced to, or it's being done in a way that's so rushed so you can't enjoy it. And I understand it's not just about the stuff, right? It's about the memories and processing the memories behind the stuff. And so by simplifying the number of things in your life, it doesn't mean that you've simplified your history or your stories or your experiences. Those are things that nobody can take away from you. And like I said, it means that you've really taken this proactive approach to going through your clutter, creating more safety for yourself in your home as you age at place, and giving yourself more sanity, right? And not having so many things in and around your house. And maybe now that after you've gone through that process, you could be giving yourself back a really big gift. Maybe you're giving yourself back the space to have, space to have dinner with a friend or with family, or to enjoy a certain space in your home again that you haven't been able to enjoy in a long time. You deserve that. We all do, right? And telling your stories. This is, like I said, is a really big part of the healing process of going through sentimental things, is telling the story of why these things are sentimental, and just putting it out in the universe that those are part of who you are, and we all deserve to share those stories. And it's a big part of it, and I wouldn't skip that part. If anything, if you learned anything from this presentation, is do not skip the part of telling the story of your sentimental items as you sort through them, or maybe even if you keep them, but just telling the stories about the things that you kept. And for some, all we really have left are our stories, right? And the history and legacies are made by telling the past. And this one is kind of goes without saying, but I always say, safety first when you're going through things. Make sure you don't stack your boxes or your piles too high as you're going through them, or block doors or stairways and things like that. And just making sure that you stay hydrated as you're sorting. Stop for a snack. Maybe ask somebody to come in and help you. Maybe if you just if you can't access certain things, have a neighbor, or I know a lot of local Rotaries can help send in volunteers to kind of do some little things for you as you're sorting, like I said, to make sure that you don't hurt yourself in the process of sorting through your items. And just like I said, finding some local resources. I'm sure if you live somewhere where there's a senior center, you can always check there. Libraries, newspaper listings tend to have a lot of those. And just a final quote about how love is how you stay alive even after you are gone, and your legacy should be a legacy of love. And that's something that no one can ever take away from you. And now I encourage you to find your legacy in your true mark of love. Thank you, everyone. That's
amazing. Well, there's definitely some questions and some great information there. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm going to just give it, I see Douglas has his hand up. So if you hang on a second, Douglas, I'm just going to go right to the chat. I know you covered it, but there were a lot of people kind of questioning it.
Yeah.
Where do you recommend giving or donating? And then some people suggested, Googling or, just going on a local, just really just trying to find out from a local, like you said, a senior center. So again, best place if they're not living in San Francisco Bay Area to find someone like yourself. What is your recommendations on or to give, donate, get rid of, things like that to help?
Yeah, so we are what's called a senior move manager. And so my husband and I help people to manage not just moving, but also sorting through their clutter. There is a lot of us out there. And most of the time, if you Google that, you can find people like us who can help you sort through your thing. And then in most cases, like we are a resource for who are local, where the local donation places are. So finding a local senior move manager would be the best place to start. And like I said, you can just Google that.
Okay. And the renowned downsizer was Matt Paxton, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's got a book and there's a television show. He's got a whole website. He's got some really great information. I cited a lot of his stuff because I think he's my inspiration.
Yeah. So we'll put that in the recap. We send a recap after this in your email, and we'll put his name and a link for him in there as well. And I do see Doug, if you want to unmute, hang on.
Oh, yes. My
Go ahead.
problem's a little different though. When I moved, we had a big flood and I lost everything, my medals and my stamp collection, and I had a comic book collection worth a fortune, all these different things, I guess. And it's hard to get over, because I had a lot of stuff from my certificates from teaching college and stuff, and all these, everything just got kind of got. So I wonder what do you say about something like that?
Yeah, no, that's tough. And I know my father went through something similar when he was younger, and he still feels that way about some of his things. And I think the best thing to do is to try and find a community of, maybe there's I know you said, was it stamps that you lost? Maybe find if there's a local stamp collector community or a fair or even an antique shop to go and just talk to somebody about, even if they're items that you don't have anymore, but to be able to go and talk to somebody and relate and bond over something that obviously you have a passion for. I would recommend that. I think that might help just you be able to connect better to those items, even though you don't have them anymore. You still obviously have a passion for them.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Denise has a question, and I'm sure a lot of people have the same question. Suggesting the best way to start. It's very overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff and it is a daunting task to a lot of people. I mean, it could be just a room full of stuff, a box full of stuff, closets. So where would be the best place if they're doing it themselves? What is the best suggestion on how to actually start?
Yeah, it could be in one of two ways. If it's a time thing, because you find that you get distracted a lot, I would say start with a timer and start with 10 minutes. And Matt Paxton talks about this too, and a lot, and that you'd be surprised how much you can do in 10 minutes. And then even a step beyond that about, okay, a very short amount of time in the least painful area possible. Everybody, you may have a lot of things and you're like, gosh, but I know this one specific area. Maybe it's a closet, or maybe it's a few boxes from someone that's no longer with you anymore. You know that's going to be your pain point. Don't start there. Just give yourself the easiest place in the shortest amount of time and start there. Like I said, maybe it's literally just a drawer, and do that one drawer for 10-15 minutes a night. And then kind of gradually, as you go through it, you'll find that sorting through things becomes a little bit easier. I'm not saying that everything's going to be easy, because it's not, but just like I said, starting in an area that you can kind of move up to the places that are going to be more difficult, or starting in the least cluttered area and then kind of tackling very small portions of a more cluttered area will make it feel more manageable. And as you are able to work your way through certain areas or certain boxes, you'll feel accomplished. Because if you start with the hardest part first, you're going to get stuck, right? And you're going to get frustrated and you're going to feel like, gosh, I can't do this at all, and then get stuck. So, but by starting in those smaller areas and starting with the least painful areas, you'll feel like, okay, you'll have some confidence in knowing that at least you can carry yourself through those larger, more difficult processes or areas.
So a question came in from Meg. She's easily distracted, and how can she stay on track with going through the things? So she's the type of person, she said, that if she's not, the phone will ring and she'll start it and then that's it. She'll move on and then won't tackle it for another month.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of us, especially when we're like, oh, I could be doing a bunch of more fun things than I can imagine doing this. And it's kind of the same advice. Just start in very small projects for a very short amount of time, and don't try to do 4 projects at one time. Just say, okay, today I'm going to go through one shelf on one closet. And if the phone rings, let it ring. If your phone goes off, or we have a message, the doorbell rings, just as best you can, try to stay focused for pick a very short amount of time. And I think that'll allow you to finish that project. I think finishing a project is what will help you not get distracted, because when you've started a bunch of projects, it's distracting because you're thinking about, oh, that project you started there and the other project over there that you started. But if you can just stay on track for one item and one thing on your checklist, then you can't be distracted, because that's the only project that you're working on. So try to just do one thing at a time.
So a question came in also from Sally, that she has a lot of stuff. She lost her husband recently, and she's very embarrassed to have someone come over and help with all this clutter. So she's ashamed of having someone come in the house, but she knows she needs help. And she has a lot of sentimental things to go through, and she doesn't feel that she can handle the task alone. So any suggestions on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to feel that way. And what I always tell people is, look, we're all human, right? Every single one of us has baggage. I mean, some of us have emotional baggage, and other people's baggage or their memories are more physical items. And that doesn't make you any less human. It's not something you should feel bad about. And it's really, you're not a bad person for having too much stuff, right? It's just maybe you've dealt with things in a different way. So I would say, just screw that. You're asking for help. You're being bold in doing that, and give yourself the credit that you're asking for the help, and that you're kind of tackling things and going through things, and to just kind of laugh it off. I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me that, and before I've even gone to the home, they'll call and, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. And I always say, for us, at least as move managers, I've always seen worse. And so that always tends to make people feel better, that, there's always worse out there, and there's always somebody who's dealing with worse things. And so it makes it scale back a little bit and not seem so bad. But like I said, give yourself the credit that you're asking for help.
Yeah.
So.
And Nina had written, what is the difference between a hoarder and someone who just needs to declutter? Like, where does that line get drawn?
There's 5 tiers of hoarding, but hoarding tends to be when things tend to become either a safety or a sanitary issue. There's people who are classically disorganized, and being disorganized doesn't make you a hoarder. Having a lot of stuff doesn't make you a hoarder. Hoarding, like I said, tends to be when things become a health hazard to you or the people coming into your home, or if it's creating a lack of access to exit ways from the home. If there was a fire, would you be able to safely get out of the home in 30 to 60 seconds? And if the answer is no, then it's probably on one of the levels of hoarding.
Okay. And Rose had chatted, I have several paintings and photographs that were my husband's, and I'm at a loss as to where or how to get them to the right person or place. Any suggestions? They're all in frames.
Okay. Yeah, I would, and I can put in the name of the website, like I said, to check. I wouldn't just drop, I mean, I'm assuming you want to sell them, is that correct? Or to
Rose, yeah, if she doesn't really know what to do with them.
I see. Yeah, I mean,
they're all of eagles. My husband was an eagle fanatic. The paintings are all oil on canvas. the photographs are reproductions that are all framed and they have the reproduction number, the certification on them. And I really just don't want to donate them to Goodwill.
Yeah.
I would like to see them used properly or given to somebody who really might enjoy them, but I have no idea what to do.
So you could check with if you have in your area any auction houses. I know we work with several in this area that every month or every other month they'll have auction of items like that who collectors frequent these auctions of estates because they're looking for very specific things, and you never know, that might be a great place to check there, and that way it'll go to someone who loves that type of work and that you'll be able to receive some money back for. Another thing you can think about is with things like that is donating them to fundraising charities. A lot of charities do fundraisers to raise money for the charity, and that is a really great item that could be donated, in that way. It's not necessarily Goodwill, but that way it depends on whether you want the money back or if you want for that money to go back to the charity. Reach out to some of your favorite local charities and ask them, hey, are you having a fundraiser? Could I offer this as an auction item?
Okay, because I actually started out with a storage unit of 45 by 25 by 15 foot tall that was full.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm down to about 35 boxes, and most of those are CDs and DVDs, which I'm putting into binders.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's still some stuff that I really just don't know what to do with.
Yeah. I mean, try those two suggestions that like I said, the auction houses, or the local charity. Those are the best ones because that way you can physically see the person you're handing it off to, and then you don't have to pay extra for shipping those items because sometimes shipping artwork can be very expensive. That's what I would recommend to do with those things, besides just donating them, like I said, because that way you'll see some benefit from it.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Denise had written in, she recently downsized and still has a ways to go, but after the physical and emotional toll it was very freeing. And it felt like a weight was lifted off her shoulders, and she's been having a rough time with, she's been dealing with personal issues there. So I know that, Denise, so good for you that, but that's really the benefit of all of it, does become freeing, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's also, Sylvia had asked, can you discuss or just list the 5 tiers of hoarding?
I don't know them all off the top of my head, but it's based on, like I said, it's based on levels of sanitary and then levels of the access to the exit of the home. Like I said, I can share it with you afterward. Maybe.
We can add it in the recap. We'll get the answers to that and we'll send that.
But like I said, a lot of people, I get calls and like, gosh, like my friends and family tell me I'm hoarders. And it's like I said, it's kind of, I think it's a term that people throw around now. And I think people are really ashamed of it, but just being disorganized and having a lot of things does not make you a hoarder. Maybe you need some help and maybe you just need to set aside and prioritize time of going through your things, but it doesn't make you a bad person. It's something that, like I said, we've all got our things, right? And you just need to prioritize going through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Maxim and then I see you, Donna. So go ahead, Maxim.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how long should you keep old bills?
Old bills, I wouldn't keep longer than a year, even.
Okay, because I have some a lot longer. They're paid, but they're just longer. And receipts also from buying stuff, not bad.
Receipts and bills, you can, I would say no more than a year. And if you have a little filing system, you keep them in, and then after that, maybe every January, you go through and just toss them and recycle them, or go to a shredding event. A lot of local places, at least out here where we live, will have like charity shredding events, and it's kind of a fun thing to go to, and it'll donate the money for the shredding to a local charity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and Donna, go ahead.
So one idea for the person with the paintings is 2 women friends of mine started an organization here that I'm involved with called Art for All Homes. And right now we're just in Texas, but eventually maybe we'll go somewhere else. But the idea is that just like people do food rescue so that they collect food like from events and then give it to people who are hungry, the idea is that we collect art from people who no longer need it in their homes. And the places where we donate it are places that you could donate your art as well. So there are a lot of organizations that are dealing, helping refugees who are coming, and they move into an apartment, and often they have some furniture that's given to them or some dishes, but they don't, not as often do they have some art to hang on their wall. So to make the place look a little more cheerful. Or there's a furniture bank that is in Houston that we donate a lot of things to the furniture bank, or Habitat for Humanity. A lot of places like that will take your art. The question I have is that I hold on to things, many too many things, and while I do recognize I don't want the rocking chair, what I like about the rocking chair that you mentioned, in my case, fortunately, it's not a rocking chair, but I do like having these things that I don't need, but that I come across them every so often and they remind me of the person. And so even though, yes, I remember my grandmother now that I'm thinking of my grandmother, but she died a long time ago. And in the day to day, I don't think of her. But when I come across this random tchotchke that was hers, even though I don't really care about that item in particular, it makes me think of her. Maybe it makes me tell my kids a story about her or whatever. And so I feel like that's the draw. It's
Yeah.
like, it's not even like the memory itself of the thing or of her using the thing or anything like that. It's like just a little nudge that brings her into that day.
To bring her back. Yeah, and I love that. I mean, like I said, it's amazing how powerful our memories can be evoked by a certain item. I find that a lot of our customers who have a lot of items like that, or maybe they don't have a lot, but they're downsizing and they can't take that whole bedroom set from their grandmother or the hutch or whatever item it is, to photographing the items helps a lot in creating either a scrapbook or just a book of really nice photographs of the items, so you can still see it and have the memory of it without having the bulk of it. That's kind of another solution for items like that. So like I said, it's something that you can still go back to and still see without having to physically take it with you.
I do notice that there's a question about books from Nina. I have a room full of books left there by a relative. I really cannot get my mind around getting rid of those books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we worked with a customer who had something like 60,000 books that had just been collected, and it was taking up a lot of space, and it was the same thing. They were having a really hard time letting them go. But we were able to find a local literacy foundation that really put these books to good use. And I think in knowing and finding the right place to rehome them really helps to be able to let them go. And maybe you go through and you find it, maybe a few of your favorite, or even take pages from some of them, or book covers, and like I talked about, kind of repurpose to create something else. Maybe you put together and make it at the top of a table with a glass on top, so you can kind of still have the memory of those items without physically holding on to the bulk of all of those items. So either, like I said, rehoming it to somewhere else that could really use them, or upcycling it in a way that is both fun and memorable, but way less bulky.
Okay. And then Cindy had said there was a place called bookdrop.com. I guess they do pickups and probably have different locations available there. Lynn added in, when we were talking about getting rid of Maxim, I know you asked about papers and things like that. Lynn added in, receipts should be kept if they're for home improvements, etc. So if there's something down the road of selling a home, things like that, that would be an important thing to keep. So that was great. Thanks, Lynn. And then let's see, if there's a bunch of anything else in here. People said eBay is a good way to get rid of things too. I don't know if there's anyone else that has any if you want to raise your hand or questions, just looking through the chat. If there's any other questions. Let's see, I'm just looking through here. Let me just read this part. Hang on. I think there was one more question here. Okay. So this is one last question that I had here from someone. Marilyn had suggested scanning receipts are helpful also. That's great. So this came in from Marty. Do I really have to declutter or go through things in parts of my home that I don't even use or go into on a regular basis, such as my garage or my guest bedroom?
So I always tell people that it depends, but yes, I do recommend it. Just especially, I always tell people when I kind of first go in and assess a house and the things that are in the home is do your fire test. Think about if you're laying in bed at night and the fire alarm goes off, God forbid, are you able to access the exits that you need to based on the amount of things that you have in your home? So if the answer is no, then I think that you should really consider going through those things, even if you don't, if you're like, well, I have the space for it and I'm not moving. If it's creating a safety hazard for you, if it's blocking any entrances or doors, highly recommend for your own safety and for the people who may or may not be living in your home to have access to safety that way. And then also just to consider the joy that maybe things that you don't think about, but by having extra space in your house or your living space, that to do things that you have been wanting to do, hobbies you've been wanting to do for a long time that maybe you haven't had a chance to do, giving yourself the opportunity to have the space to do that could be really fun and liberating and kind of, might morph into a whole new fun stage of your life. So I still recommend decluttering at the very least for those reasons.
Yeah, and Marianne had suggested there's a focusmate.com. If you're just a distractible person, it is a virtual coworker and it is free unless you do more than 3 sessions a week. So that might help even on another, just distracting on other things, not decluttering just that, but that could be a nice tool for someone. So that was a suggestion made by Marianne. Thank you for that. So before we end the session, I want to just reach out, ask anybody if they have any other questions that weren't touched on or anything that they want to add in. Anyone? Oh, Bonnie, hang on, Bonnie. Hold on, if you want to unmute. Hold on, you're on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. I collect. I have a storage space, public storage, and I have boxes in there from when I moved down here. And my father was a musician, pianist, and band arranger, and all that. And I still have a lot of his manuscripts, music, sheet music, and music that he took off. He transcribed it onto, paper from the recording, and I don't know. I thought maybe I can give it. No, old music like that. I don't think there's any demand for that anymore. This goes back, like to 1940s and 30s and 1916s and something like that. Yeah, and so it's hard. I don't use it. I don't look, but I see piano from Beethoven, from Handel, etudes, sonatas, and I'm proud of it. But what am I going to put it on the wall or something?
Oh, but Barbara L just said she plays the piano and she'd love it.
Yeah.
Someone just got it in, Barbara L.
Hey, all right.
You got to take her there, Bonnie.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Also, I have 78 RPM records and long playing, the plastic, the vinyl. And the 78s, I don't think, I don't know if there's a demand for that or if you can go to a music place or, call up.
No,
Why
but
am
there's
I
definitely
saving it?
music's a thing, because Ada even just joined in that there are people that would really want that music. So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But how would I know where I would find these people?
Like Maxim loves
Yeah.
78s and collects them, and you know, you have a
Oh.
lot of people chatting, frame some of the music. Maxim loves it. Vinyl is very big trend now. I mean, there's definitely, don't underestimate that. With Maxim, you collect them?
Yes.
Oh.
Bonnie, I put my email in
Yeah.
chat,
Okay.
so email me. Let's
Oh,
talk.
all right. Okay.
Thank you.
What's your name? What's your name?
Barbara L.
Oh,
Barbara,
Barbara.
Yeah, Ashley, if you want to jot
okay.
that down, and then maybe we can get that
Okay.
over to Bonnie in case she
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah,
I
you can
also, one other thing is I've collected and kept, like, from school when I was young, I was in a dance recital and all, I kept all the programs, autograph books from school, memorandums and things. You know, am I gonna take it out of the box and show it to everybody, or, you know,
Right.
I don't know. And pictures, oh, mounds of pictures, you know, when you used to get them printed at the local store, and that in envelopes, they put them in envelopes. I got
Yeah.
piles of those
Yeah.
stacked.
Yeah, that we all have.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
So it's just a matter of deciding, pull one picture out and that's it. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Find
no,
your pictures. Yep.
And also, I have some files, you know, for things like bills, you know, you put them in files like T-Mobile or Sirius XM, the information, that's fine. United Healthcare, my healthcare, they're sending me always notices, letters, information, and I can't get, well, I tried to sort some of it out, that's true, but I still, it's hard to, I don't know, I just find it hard to get rid of things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, what you said and what you know, what you suggested will help. I took notes, so I'll read it over.
All right, well, thanks, Bonnie. There's definitely people that have interest in that stuff, and we'll try and get you connected with Barbara.
All
And I
right.
did see, I know Doug left the call, but Linda, that was very nice. She has a small stamp collection that her father-in-law had in the 40s and on up, and wanted to know if Doug, that lost his in the flood, would like to have them. So I will try and get that message over to Doug. Linda, that's really sweet. So we will let him know, because he's not on the call right now, but we will definitely reach out to him and suggest that. So thank you. And then Gwen added that it was a delight for her to declutter, and now she can walk through her house without tripping, and the air is fresher and the rooms are brighter. And thank you so much, Adriana. Great job. Realize that I don't even miss that she got rid of. So this is an eye opener for a lot. And then Luana added that you can write stories of your life at storyworth.com. We actually are having someone come on for a memoir and to help write your own story. That is going to be an event that we are having here in the end of April. So that you should all look forward to joining that one, because that's a great one at the end of the month. That is Swanee Bauman, and she will be leading that event. And Dottie, last question. I do see your hand up, so go ahead.
Okay, this is just about getting rid of actual items like the rocking chair. I had a friend who suggested just take pictures of them and either put them in a scrapbook or frame them if they're really special. That way, and then get rid of the item. That way you can always look at the picture and have that memory, but you don't have to worry about having the actual item.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great one.